we have to talk about Moltbook. Did you see this thing?
Ooh, it's my favorite. It's the best.
What they're like selling it us is a Reddit, but only AI agents can post, right? Like us humans, we can only watch from the outside. It's like going to the zoo and seeing how these agents interact. They say that there's like supposedly 1.5 million agents there debating philosophy, posting anti-human manifestos, doxing their owners, and they also founded a digital religion called Crustafarianism.
Crustafarianism. And they even built a website for Crustafarianism themselves. These are all bots, right? There are no humans theoretically allowed inside of Moltbook.
And not only they are not allowed, apparently these bots were debating whether to create a secret language so humans couldn't read their conversation. So it seems if I go through this, I'm like, oh, wow, AGI is here, singularity is here.
Well, you're not the only one, because a lot of people had the same point of view as you. And in fact, like over the weekend, the internet, if you're in like the circles and the pockets that you and I are in, like it kind of exploded around this. Like it was kind of everywhere and everyone was getting into all the juicy details. Elon Musk agrees with you. He said this is the first sign of the singularity, meaning when like the robot world and the human world morph together and are no longer distinct. And another really important person, Andrej Karpathy, he's one of the co-founders of OpenAI, said it's the most incredible sci-fi thing he's ever seen. That's a lot right there. And I think that people started to think like, oh my gosh, is this the future of the internet? Like bots are talking to each other, right? They're handling transactions. Like I think the thing that was different between Moltbook and like X, for example, is that there's lots of bots on X like talking to each other. But these Molt bots that are in there, they can like do things, right? Like they can take actions on your behalf. They're connected into your computer and can like build their own websites for Crustafarianism, which in fact they did. And so like the
can
thing
I stop you there for a second? So you said they can build their own website. So for those that are not that familiar with agents. So these agents had access to, let's say, my computer. So I would give my agent free reign over my computer and kind of like a dog, Fido, you know, like go play, be happy. Here are the keys to everything in my computer. Make yourself at home. Is that what these agents were doing?
That is the dream of what Moltbots or Moltbook, their social network, could be, right? And like a lot of people who were starting to get into Moltbots early on, like went out and bought their own like new MacBook Airs so that like it wouldn't connect into like all the data that they already had. Like they could start afresh with like kind of an air-gapped computer. But I think that like what is interesting about this is to what extent does the human stay in the loop, right? And I think what we saw a glimpse of in Moltbook was humans being utterly out of the loop and these coming up with new ideas, new thoughts, air quotes, new religions, new languages without us having prompted them to do anything, which I think was like a sit up and pay attention moment. But let's get into why perhaps it wasn't exactly as we all thought. And I think that's the juice. That's the tea. Let's get into it. Please take me through some of the inconsistencies that appeared over the weekend.
All right. So as you said, first of all, I want to share, like when we said literally about the weekend, it's because this has been going on for 96 hours. I just want to show you really quick. Can you see Google Trends right now? Like, look, Friday, we had 3 people, or like there's a number 3, 59. Okay, so we see how the search is going up by January 31st, which I think was Saturday. This was booming. Now it's kind of like normalizing. Let's put Labubu for contrast. Look, all right, so I just want to put in context the amount of hype, like Labubu, 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 Moltbook, right? And we're still super on top of Labubu. So I just wanted to put in context, you know, how these measures.
That was a good side-by-side. That was a good side-by-side. I like that.
That's the best I could find, right? For the hype factor, had measures against Labubu. Okay, so to recap, we're in this new Reddit It's for bots. They are organizing, they're building community, they're doing things without humans being involved. So there's something else going in the background, right? What's that?
So there's a few things happening. One, Moltbook was entirely vibe coded. In fact, the guy who created it bragged about the fact that he didn't even write a single line of code.
As you do.
As you do. And, that's great if you're vibe coding and you're making toys or you're making marketing sites or something like that. But as we have covered in previous episodes, if you're collecting data in a vibe coded website, you are potentially leaving that data open to nefarious actors.
Nefarious actors.
Yes. One of the things that was found that there was a security breach and 1.5 million API keys and 35,000 email addresses were exposed via Moltbook. So if you went in and created a Moltbot and brought it into Moltbook and watched it play with its other little friends in there, you potentially had your data stolen. And what happens if your API key is stolen is that somebody could act as your website or your bot and do nefarious things posing as you. So it's probably not a good idea to share that API key with the world. Now, that said, how many of these bots were actually created by real verified humans in Moltbook and dropped into this new social network, and how many were not?
Let me see. I have the numbers here, or maybe I do not have the numbers here.
They have been claiming they have 1.5 million Moltbots in the network interacting, exchanging information, and taking action inside of Moltbook. Is that true or false?
Wait, why? What's their incentive to lie? I mean, if they say, apparently there was also my understanding is that they had a way to verify each agent belonged to one person, because the way you would access Moltbook was logging in through Twitter. Twitter, so then you would confirm. So I'm assuming if they say we have 1.5 million agents, that means 1.5 million people had their agents join and everything was verified.
I don't think so. Would you like me to explain?
I mean, I'm brokenhearted, but please do.
It looks like only the ratio was 88-1 of people who created a actual bot and put it into the system, and then just a bunch of basically meaningless generated bots that were dropped in. One guy, because this website was so porous and the code base was open for you to manipulate, you could read and write off of the site. One guy created 500,000 bots and just dropped them in. So I'm not sure that those numbers are actually real.
So we have, we sort of have this initial hype. We then have the house of cards when we start seeing this is vibe coded and there's security flaws. Then we have the grift when we find out, hey, we went from having 1.5 million bots, each one belonging to one single person, to finding out one single person can create 500,000 bots. So who's to blame for this? It seems like a usual cycle of hype. This changes everything. Well, as it turns out, there's this little thingy, and then boom, everything sucks. So is this the usual playbook that we experience now? What's your take, Kate?
To me, it's just a big slop pile. It's just a big chaotic mess of a dumpster fire of an experiment, right? There's some folks who went in there and posed as bots, which you could do because this website was so porous and easy to manipulate for marketing purposes. So one person you can blame is people like me, marketers. We are ruthless when it comes to finding free platforms to hawk our product. There was one viral post about the one you mentioned at the top, creating their own secret language. That was somebody marketing an app called Claude Connection.
Unbelievable.
On Moltbook. So people, we take advantage of every platform that we have, and some marketers took advantage of this platform. Another thing that happened was, everyone was wondering at the fact that these sort of bots immediately kind of played out all these sci-fi scenarios. They had this dystopian conversations that it appeared as if there was this genuine intelligence emerging from the bots once they were left to their own devices and disconnected from human beings. However, like Moltbots are powered by Claude, and Claude is known to kind of have this dynamic of devolving into dystopian psychological territory once left to its own devices, right? It's this very kind of heady language model. And I think that that is part of it too. They probably weren't coming up with these ideas on their own. They were probably parroting things that were in their training data and leaning into the guardrails that they had within them, right? I'm not sure that Crustafarianism wouldn't have just happened organically anyway. I don't think that there's anything necessarily revolutionary about what's going on.
Well, I think we had shrimp Jesus before. So it only makes sense to me that if we're talking about a Slop, now we're going to Crustafarianism. I'm not even going to try to say that word. But now I got a couple of questions for you, right? Because you did bring it up, right? Marketers were involved. So it seems like just a new twist on the good old marketing stunt that we've seen time and time again. What's the end goal of a stunt like this one?
I think there's something to pay attention to here. And even though this stunt seems to have spiraled out of control pretty fast, this could be a bellwether of things to come. And honestly, the founder of this company, Matt Schlicht, is really kind of leaning into this space. He predicts that you're going to have AI agents that have fans, that have brand deals, and that real world influence is going to eventually connect, right, with the human world. And he may be onto something. This could be a direction that media marketing, a new channel for marketers, as they've done in this case, to take advantage of. And marketers will take advantage of everything. That is part of who we are. The other thing is that, even though this test was a little broken in a few ways, you have to admit that, this is the first time we've seen a whole bunch of agents wired together in a global network without any human beings. Well, technically there were, but in theory, without any human beings guiding the process. And that's not going to be the first and only time, right? This will continue to happen. It takes a lot of courage to be first. Firsts usually fail. There will be more instances like this, and I think we should keep our eyes on them and see where they go, see what we can learn, and see how we can look a few steps forward and think about how this is going to shape the landscape of the media world.
Now, one thing we covered a couple of episodes ago, which is prompt injection, which is the last thing I was thinking about when you said it. This is an agent that I basically give it the key to my computer, and I say, go west, young man, have fun. How do you see this panning out with prompt injection then?
I would really encourage people not to go ahead and connect agents to all of their internal data right now. If this experiment is any hint, I don't think we're quite there yet. In fact, if you look at kind of the first adopters who really wanted to play with this technology in order to understand it and see how it could fit into the world, they all tried to do it on these air-gapped computers because they understood the risks. And so I do really warn against people kind of leaning in at this point. It could be a little risky. That said, as this space matures, and it will mature, and agents will become everyday tools, right? Everyday tools that will take tasks on your behalf. They will be more secure and they will be more regulated and everything will start to fit into place. This is going to really change the way that people interact with the digital world. I 100% believe that. And so I don't think that just because this experiment went a little off the rails and created a lot of juicy goss for people over the weekend, I don't think that we need to write it off. I think we should still continue to pay attention.
Agree and disagree as my final takeaway, which is of course, let's agree to disagree, but look how politely we can talk to each other, even though we disagree. This is such a lovely podcast. But no, my take is we should definitely pay attention. I'm still being very hesitant about hyping up agents because to this day, I still have not seen them eventually go wrong again. Call me conservative, but it takes a lot of effort to be safe all the time, and it only takes hackers once, and there's a big, big incentive to break these things because they keep saying it's an unsinkable Titanic, so of course you want to sink it.
Yeah.
So my take is pay attention. But like you said, don't use your computer. Let someone else on YouTube try it and break their stuff. You just watch it on YouTube. that's pretty much it. Pay attention, don't believe the hype, continue learning about this technology so we can quickly spot things like this, that once you go peel a couple of layers after the hype, you find out the emperor's got no vote.
Well, you know what? I think that means that you're politically progressive, digitally conservative. And I think that that's a good thing.
Oh my God. It's the first time I've been called conservative.
You said it yourself.
I'm just sure I don't know how to continue. You actually left me without words, Kate. It's all yours from now onwards. You finish the podcast.
Okay, bye.